The title of the show is to enable me to fix my attention on any one of these symbols. I was to imagine that I was looking at the colours as I might see them on a moving picture screen. It's a sentence that's taken from a book called Thoughts Through Space, which is a book about a telepathy experiment that took place between Alaska and New York in the 1930s. And it was this sort of instruction for how this telepathy experiment might take place, or like sort of how one might visualize these situations or images in order for somebody to perceive them very far away. But I really kind of stuck on that sentence just because it seems like this kind of instructional lens to approach the show through. I guess I see the title firstly as a kind of sentence that's a work by itself, so wherever it appears it can kind of function as a kind of text work in some way, because it sort of, I guess, invites this like a certain kind of imagining or a certain kind of visualization, which I think is present in a lot of the works. And so as this kind of accompaniment to the works, it sort of presents a way of looking at them through this kind of prism of the title somehow. I guess importantly, this is the first time I've been able to bring works together just by the nature of how the works are. I haven't previously seen more than one of them together ever. In sort of thinking about how to structure the show, it was a way I was really thinking about how to draw out these relationships that are very clear when I'm making work between the individual works. And yet to think about those diagrammatically, to think about them definitely kind of non-sequentially or non-chronologically, so that the relationships between the works can be established more through how one might navigate the space, by certain kind of lighting conditions that might happen, by the repetition of phrases that happen between the works. So there's very much the way that I was approaching the show is through this idea of a kind of spillage, so that the works kind of are able to sort of spill into each other. And so you can then, in the same way that you might use the title as a kind of lens to look through, you can take one work as a lens to look at another one. The green filters that are on the windows cast a green light that sort of reaches maybe halfway into the space. The green light is paired with a screen print, a text work that will be on the wall in the upper gallery, which is one kind of monologue, a description by a rocket engineer of his experience of hearing the Northern Lights. And it was this kind of incredibly full description that went on for about 4 minutes of just kind of endless comparisons or endless description, or really trying to figure out this sound that he'd heard. Like the text is in green, and this green light is important in relation to that work, but it's also important in relation to how this whole space, how the upper gallery is working. And the reason that I used it is to somehow try and mirror a way in which you might see the Northern Lights, or you might think you have seen it. When you're seeing them, there's often this sense, although we're dealing with a kind of black sky with light in this case, you're often trying to work out if you are actually seeing something, or if it's your eye, or if it's just a cloud, or if you're not sure what it is. And I think this light functions in a way that the longer you spend in it, the more that you kind of forget that it's there. I guess a lot of the things that are happening in the work are often trying to kind of unsettle a certain kind of security of perception. And I think that this light is a way of, I guess, highlighting that. The work that's in the triangular prism behind me that you may be able to hear voices coming from now, the work that is composed from descriptions of a sound that some people have heard when seeing the Northern Lights. And this sound is something that not everyone who sees the Northern Lights hears. It's a sound that isn't recordable, and it's a sound that there are various ideas or theories or kind of suppositions as to what it is that people are hearing, that range from synesthesia to tinnitus to something around you acting as a kind of natural aerial, be it a tree, your hair, something like that. But each one of the explanations doesn't really ever quite make it round the track without tripping over its laces or something. They're all they're not kind of final. So all the explanations are uncertain themselves.
Yeah, the lines that define.
It was real. We could see the car lights, we could see the street lights, we could see the buildings. They were in detail, not the fine detail, but the macro detail, and that's